Who was Jeffrey Epstein really, and what does Russia have to do with it? Sex scandals have long been deeply intertwined with the history of global politics, especially in the United States. Over the years, the public has discussed President Bill Clinton's connection with Monica Lewinsky, rumors about Marilyn Monroe's affair with the Kennedy brothers, and of course, the accusations against Donald Trump regarding his contacts with porn stars. For us, these topics have already become a kind of everyday occurrence. However, in 2026, the attention of American society is focused on a scandal that, in terms of its scale and the number of figures involved, could become the largest in the country's history. We're talking about the so-called Epstein files, a trove of declassified and published materials related to financier Jeffrey Epstein. His name has become part of pop culture, and the files themselves are actively used in political debates by both Republicans and Democrats. Epstein was accused of pedophilia and human trafficking, and his circle of contacts included members of the political, business, and cultural elite of the United States and other countries. At the same time, newly declassified documents show that Epstein's story is not limited solely to sexual crimes. The materials increasingly mention the theory that he may have been connected to foreign intelligence agencies and used his contacts to gather compromising information on influential people. The question of which country he might have worked for has become one of the key topics in the discussion of the new publications. That's exactly what we're going to try to figure out together. I'd like to ask you to give this video a like. You can also write in the comments before we start the discussion, who do you think Jeffrey Epstein worked for? And finally, together we'll be declassifying these files step by step. As usual, you give a like and subscribe, and I'll provide the information. Let's go. So, in the new batch of Epstein files referenced by Western media, there is information about his possible connections with the Russian elite and the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation. According to an article by The Telegraph, the declassified materials mention Russian President Vladimir Putin over 1,000 times. It is specifically noted that his name appears in 1,056 documents, and Moscow is mentioned in another 9,629. One of the episodes described in detail in the documents concerns the year 2010. At that time, in correspondence with Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Epstein offered him a young woman as a companion for dinner. In the letter, he emphasized that she was Russian, beautiful, and trustworthy. According to the media, this email became part of a broader array of materials featuring Epstein's contacts with representatives of elites from various countries. Over the years, a huge number of speculations and theories have accumulated around the figure of the financier. One of the most sensational versions was voiced by journalists from the Daily Mail, who claimed that Epstein cooperated with Russian intelligence and participated in gathering compromising material on politicians and businessmen through so-called honeytraps. According to them, the recently published millions of new materials in the case contain thousands of references to Russia and Epstein's Russian contacts. Sources of the publication suggest that such connections could explain Epstein's extremely luxurious lifestyle, which did not correspond to his official career as a financier. At the same time, it is emphasized that, as of now, no documentary evidence has been presented of a direct connection between the president of Russia or his special services and Epstein's illegal activities. Daily Mail sources claim that American intelligence agencies closely monitored Jeffrey Epstein's Russian contacts for many years. At the same time, according to their accounts, British intelligence agencies reportedly faced considerable difficulties while working on this particular issue, mainly due to Jeffrey Epstein's especially close relationship with Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It is suggested that this very factor may have complicated thorough investigations and the exchange of information between allies. Among the published documents, there is material claiming that in August 2010, after Epstein had already been sentenced, he offered to introduce Prince Andrew to a beautiful 26-year-old Russian woman. Experts view this episode as one example of the possible use of personal acquaintances and informal contacts to build trusting relationships. American intelligence experts believe that Epstein may have entered the world of espionage through his business relationship with media mogul Robert Maxwell. Incidentally, he died under mysterious circumstances in 1991. His body was found in the Atlantic Ocean after falling overboard from a yacht. Epstein himself was discovered hanging lifelessly in his high-security cell in the year 2019. But his family members and close relatives have persistently claimed that he might have been deliberately killed in order to effectively silence him forever. Robert Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, was officially sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for sex trafficking and other crimes related to her long-term collaboration with Jeffrey Epstein. She actually first met him in New York shortly after her father's mysterious death. Sources in the intelligence services claim that Robert Maxwell himself had been a Russian agent of influence since the 1970s. According to them, he participated in operations to extradite Soviet Jews to Israel with the involvement of the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad and also laundered Russian money in the West. The investigation suggests that Epstein was introduced to Maxwell and KGB structures by an oil tycoon who, according to sources, was also under the control of Russian intelligence. Investigations into Maxwell's business activities revealed his connections not only with the KGB and Mossad, but also with the British intelligence agency MI6. American officials responsible for national security believe that Epstein could have had, or rather may have had, persistent contacts with Russian organized crime. In their opinion, these connections could have been used for blackmail and pressure. The publications also note that this could explain the relative ease with which Epstein, according to documents, brought girls from Russia. One of the Daily Mail sources stated that many influential figures, from politicians to businessmen, found themselves in compromising situations on Epstein's Island. According to him, this system was the largest honey trap operation in the world, equipped with modern surveillance tools and devices to record everything that happened. The published files also contain correspondence indicating possible attempts by Jeffrey Epstein to arrange a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In one of the emails dated September 11, 2011, an unidentified employee discusses with Epstein an upcoming trip to Russia and a potential meeting with Putin. The author of the message wrote that someone named Igor reported, earlier in Palm Beach, Epstein had already mentioned a meeting with Putin scheduled for September 16th, and therefore a ticket could be booked for arrival in Russia a few days before that date. In addition, the documents mention another attempt to organize a similar meeting, only this time in 2014. In an email, Japanese entrepreneur Joy Ito informed Epstein that American billionaire and LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman was unable to change his schedule for the trip, which was supposed to include a meeting with Vladimir Putin. In subsequent correspondence, Ito informed Epstein about the cancellation of these plans after the Malaysia Airlines flight disaster on July 17, 2014 in Donbass, noting that under the circumstances, such a trip seemed inappropriate. The new materials indicate that Jeffrey Epstein's circle of contacts included not only politicians, but also figures from global business and show business. In a 2013 correspondence, the British entrepreneur Richard Branson wrote to Jeffrey Epstein, stating that he would be very glad to meet with him, and specifically asked him to bring along his harem. Representatives of Virgin Group later explained that it was about Epstein's adult employees and that Branson's own contacts with him were limited to rare business events more than 10 years ago. These Epstein files also include correspondence with Elon Musk from 2012 to 2013, in which the entrepreneur inquired about possible parties on Epstein's Island. At the same time, the documents contain no evidence that Musk actually visited the island. He himself stated that such fragments of correspondence could be misinterpreted and emphasized the importance of holding real criminals accountable. A separate set of documents concerns Bill Gates. The materials contain letters presumably written by Epstein with claims that Gates contracted a venereal disease after encounters with Russian women. Gates's representatives called these statements completely false and absurd. The files also mention director Brett Ratner and advisor to the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, Miroslav Lajčák. You can see him on your screens right now. After the correspondence was published, Lajčák resigned, emphasizing that his departure was due to his unwillingness to complicate the government's political position. At the same time, experts remind that merely mentioning a name in the files is not evidence of a crime. The current president of the United States, Donald Trump, is mentioned in the documents hundreds of times. He admitted to knowing Epstein, but claims that he broke off relations with him long before any criminal cases were initiated and had nothing to do with his crimes. Finally, the materials include a theory about possible connections between Epstein and the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad. These claims are based on a 2020 FBI report and the testimony of a confidential informant. The documents contain correspondence between Epstein and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, including letters in which Epstein denied working for Mossad and discussed requests for help in finding former intelligence agents for investigations. It should be recalled here that Jeffrey Epstein was found dead on August 10, 2019, in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, a federal prison in New York. At that time, he was already under indictment and under arrest on charges of trafficking minors for sexual exploitation. The investigation was looking into dozens of incidents, and Epstein himself was awaiting trial, which could have resulted in a life sentence. The official cause of death, announced by the United States Department of Justice and confirmed by a forensic medical examination, was suicide by hanging. According to reports, Epstein used elements of his bed linens for this. The body was discovered by prison staff during the morning cell check. However, almost immediately after the official version was published, numerous questions arose. It turned out that at the time of his death, Epstein was alone in his cell, even though earlier, after his suicide attempt in July 2019, he was supposed to be kept under increased supervision. In addition, the guards responsible for his block did not carry out the mandatory checks every 30 minutes that night, and, as was later established, had fallen asleep. The surveillance cameras near Epstein's cell did not record what was happening due to a technical malfunction. Particular attention was drawn to the findings of the pathologist hired by Epstein's family. He stated that some of the injuries on the neck were more consistent with strangulation than with a typical suicide by hanging. This conclusion did not directly refute the official version, but it intensified the persistent doubts that kept arising. Against this backdrop, Epstein's death sparked a powerful wave of conspiracy theories. They were all united by one key motive. Epstein possessed information that could be dangerous for powerful people. Given the scale of his contacts, politicians, billionaires, members of royal families, business elites, and celebrities, the assumption quickly took hold in society that he might have been eliminated to prevent him from testifying. Versions implicating American intelligence agencies, foreign spy services, financial elites, and even certain states began to circulate in the public sphere. These theories were fueled by the fact that Epstein died before a full-fledged trial could begin, and many possible accomplices never faced justice. Well, we will continue to try to analyze all the materials released by the U.S. Department of Justice in order to truly understand and get to the bottom of this case. For now, that's all we have time to tell you at this moment. Please like and subscribe and follow updates on our channel. And to make sure you don't miss anything, you can click the bell icon. My name is Anastasia Husarieva. Take care of yourselves and wash your hands with soap. Bye-bye, everyone.